Alright, so welcome back to the channel. It's been almost 6 months since I uploaded a video. This is going to be a new video on Supabase, and specifically using the PostGIS or GIS, I don't know how to say it, extension to allow GeoQueries. I stayed away from Supabase when it came to using applications that rendered maps because I really didn't understand how to use PostGIS in Postgres because I'm not a Postgres guy. But recently a blog post or content was added showing how to do it. And so I'm going to give it a go here in an Ionic Framework app. So we're going to use Supabase as our database. We are going to do something different, and we're going to use Mapbox here for our map. And there's a NPM library called ReactMapGL that's a wrapper around Mapbox that we're going to use to make rendering this map a lot easier. This is probably going to be a pretty long video in the end because I have to go through getting the map on the page. I'm going to use a Capacitor plugin for my location. Then we have to set up our database in Supabase. I'm probably going to skip the whole Supabase project setup and just focus on getting the PostGIS plugin installed, how you load your data into the tables using the proper format to store latitude and longitude. But like I said, I'm not going to go into how to set up a Supabase project. And then we'll implement some queries to actually get the data out. So hopefully this is some content you enjoy. Please make sure you like and subscribe. And it's kind of good to be back to creating some content because it's been a while. Thanks. So what I have already is just a basic Ionic application. This is an Ionic React application. And did I use, yes, it's using TypeScript. So this is a single page application. I've kind of cleaned out that Explorer stuff that they have, and I just have this single page with the title, and there's no content in there. So we need to load some libraries to get all this stuff working. I have loaded the libraries already, but I'll kind of load them again so that you guys can see what needs to be added. So we need to add this ReactMapGL that I spoke about, and then we need to load Mapbox. So we can kind of run this thing and let it go. The other thing you definitely need to do is, since we are using Mapbox, let me bring this over here. You need to create an account, log in or whatever. So I've already created my account. And then you need to provide, where is it? I think it already flashed by. Oh, yeah, I don't want to show you my tokens. I'll have to clear them out later. You need to create a token because the token is what you're going to use as part of the Mapbox API to get the map rendering on the page. So that's that. And then now let's just kind of go through the process of getting a basic map on the page. So after we've loaded the libraries in, we need to do some import statements. So we are going to, let's go up here. We're going to import map from the ReactMapGL, and then you have to import the CSS. If you don't, let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Ooh, that's pretty big. If you don't import the CSS, things are not going to go well. So now I have the CSS imported, and then I'll render my map component. So we'll go down here inside this Ion content full screen. We'll paste in, oh, that's the wrong code. Let's get the right code over here. All right, so let's get to our page. We're going to set our width to basic style. So I'm basically saying use the whole page for the style. This is the Mapbox style that I'm going to use for my map. You can get more information on specific styles from the Mapbox website. And then my initial kind of view state, which really is kind of like a the lat long bounds the zoom, and that's kind of how the map is kind of laid out. More information can be provided in the Mapbox documentation. And then this last thing here is you need to add your token. So I will get my token. And my token's installed. And now let's see if I can get a map rendering here. And now I have a map rendering on my page. So that's kind of all it took to get the map on the page. So that was pretty awesome. So the next thing we want to do is let's just hop ahead and go and take a look at how to get our location using a capacitor plugin. And I'm using this Ionic Visual Studio Code plugin to kind of do less stuff on the command line and kind of use this tool for more kind of a graphical UI for implementing changes. This module is no longer supported. MapGL geocoder. Yeah, I'm not using that anymore. So when I get to using the geocoder, I'll make sure I install the correct one here. So let me just let's see what will let me do. Let's uninstall this so I can uninstall that plugin. Now what I do want to do though is, let's see if I can get this capacitor plugin. No, that's not what I want to do. I want to load in the specific capacitor plugin to help me get my location. So let me get that code up and running. And so to kind of load it in, we'll just use the tool for loading it. So for capacitor plugins, add, you paste the name. The name you want is capacitor geolocation, and hit enter. And it's now installed, the geolocation plugin. And let's take a look at the documentation. So here's kind of how it says you get this thing in. So let's give it a go. Actually, I'm just going to copy this text right here. We're going to go up to the top. Also, like I said, for now, I'm just putting everything in one component, but eventually we'll break this up into separate components. So we've now loaded the geolocation in, and then we want to get the current position. And what we'll do is we'll just do this right up at the top here. And then we will make this API call. Let's kind of just get all of this for now. And I'll just kind of wrap this in an async block up here. And kind of wrap this whole thing and call it. Then we'll do this, and then we'll go like this, and we'll say up, up. And so now that should make the asynchronous call, and then it's logging. So let's put some comments in here. then const let's import use date. Let's do set user location coordinates. Site the position, so let's see if I can do this. And we set the user location first. So see, as you can see here, it's trying to get the location, and I honestly think it's going to fail because it's not on HTTPS, but let's see. Because I've run into this error before. Did it give me a location? Yes, it looks like it is actually getting me a location. Because I thought before it was failing, saying it could only do it on HTTPS, but it did give me a location. So now let's see if we can actually use my location down here on my map. So here we'll go user location dot coords dot, I think that first one is latitude, no, that's longitude, and let's set our latitude. That does not look right at all. Let's see if we're getting any errors and why this isn't working. Developer tools. Oh, that's UseEffect gets you every time. What was happening, I didn't put the dependencies in, so it was just constantly running it. Oh, I know this view initial state, if I remember correctly, is only run once, so I don't really want to use that. So there's another one on here. Hold on, this. Let's see. So this is just the initial view state. So let's see if I can just change this here. And so it's not. I'm getting my error because I don't have my coordinates yet. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to say if that should be user location. If I don't have a user location, then just return until I get one. See if that solves the problem. All right, that did solve the problem. Why is this still complaining? So, okay. So just so that you all know what I did, let me close this thing out. How do I? Basically, what I did here was to set the properties that I needed to set on this map component. I just took this object and destructured it, and it passed them all through. I can probably simplify this even more by removing this and doing this, I believe. 1, 2, 3. Removing this. Yeah. So it's basically destructuring the coordinates and passing everything through, which basically gives us its latitude, its latitude and its longitude that it needs. And then I set my zoom function here, my value here. So we set it 14, looked like it looks good for what we want. Like I said, we'll play with this more as we kind of dig into the application. But for those of you who don't know, I live in DC. This is a map of DC, and I kind of live in this general area. So we can see that it's getting us our location. And basically, this is the equivalent of loading. Can I do, let's see. Okay, so where we last left off, I was running into this weird issue trying to get my loading dialog to show up. And as it turns out, it is because of a known React 18 issue. So basically, UseEffect fires twice in development. And what was happening was that since UseEffect was firing twice in development, my loading dialog was never getting dismissed properly. That combined with another issue that I discovered, I'll put both of these links in the video, which is that there needs to be a certain amount of time between when the Ion View controller for the loader renders the dialog and dismisses the dialog. So they actually recommend that you use the controller or the hooks that are provided in React to render the loading dialog. So that's the other problem that I also need to solve. And so what we're gonna break this up into two pieces. The first thing that we are going to do is we're going to address this issue of UseEffect firing twice in development. And we're going to follow this example down here of using a ref to keep track of if we've called UseEffect or not. And we can also see that this is happening if we open up our debugger, or tools, development tools, and let's clear this out and let's refresh. And you can see that it's making multiple requests for by geolocation, which tells you that it's basically calling this component twice. So the first thing we want to do is fix that problem. And so the way we'll fix that problem is we will define a ref. And then what we'll do is inside of our UseEffect here, we will check the ref to see if it's set. And if it's set, we won't execute any of the functionality there. And we can solve that with this code. And so you can see what we're doing here is that when we start off, we set the ref to false. The UseEffect will come in and it will run. And since this is false, it will run through the first, let's see. If loading current is true, then return. It isn't true, it's false. So it'll come through and it will run. This ref is set now to true. It'll come back in and try to run again. And since the ref is set to true, it will just return and it will not execute any of this code. And we can verify it by taking a look here when I reload this. So you can see I'm only getting one geolocation request. So now I know for certain that my UseEffect is only being called once. And now that I know that my UseEffect is only being called once, I can load my loading indicator inside of my UseEffect. And we're going to use the hook that Ionic provides to render that dialog. And let's see what that is. We can use this guy. And let's put this hook right here. Use for rendering, loading, And we'll say up here, use for ensuring UseEffects only runs once. All right. And this present is pretty straightforward. So we're going to come inside here, and once we know we're going to run, we'll say show loading, and we could say present. Then present takes parameters, message, and our message is getting user's location. And then we want the, what is it, define spinner, this is string duration, spinner. We're going to say we want our spinner to be circular. What is this complaining about? Oh, present. And it's going to complain about not being able to run that there. So let's take that and put it inside of our async block we created. Let's take our comment and move it down there too. Show loading indicator. And so this will show our loading indicator now. And that should be users. And then what we want to do is after we set our location, we want to dismiss this. And so we'll use that dismiss. And so what I'll do is I'll use kind of the function approach for UseEffect. And we want to return the new value. We want to return coordinates, but also inside of here, we want to call the dismiss. And that should make our dialog go away. I think is this. Yeah, we can just call it like that, even though it is a promise. We should be able to call it like that. And then, as you see down here, it's complaining because it wants us to add the dependencies array. So we'll add the dependencies array. And then let's see what we get. So we called it once, we rendered our dialog, and then it closed the window. And that's the behavior that we were looking for. And like I said, there were a couple of issues that were related to that. The UseEffect being called twice, the Ionic loading component issue of calling dismiss too quickly after loading it. And I showed you how to address both of those issues. So now we have our map rendering, we have it finding our location, and we have it centering. We can we squeeze one last thing in before we get to the Supabase stuff? Let's show the, let's see if I can get a pin to show. I think a pin should be pretty straightforward. Just gotta scroll down. Look in this documentation. This is where we want to be. Developer guide. Getting started. This is the map. Styling. This is pretty much all you got to do for marker. So let's just take this marker example, and we're going to go inside of our map, because you make sure you notice the marker is a child element of the actual map. So we got to do this. And then here inside, we place our marker. Let's import our marker. See, the marker comes from React Map.gl, which is what we want. So you go up here, you see React Map.gl, our marker. And then we're going to take our same coordinates that we have, the user's location, and use our marker there. latitude, longitude. Let's go back to our map. And you can see it has our location rendering. Let's refresh this one more time. And you see it has the actual location rendering on the map. Wait, there's one last thing I want to do before we move on, since the big deal here is about building native mobile applications using Ionic Framework and Capacitor. Let's put our map app inside of an iOS app using Ionic and Capacitor, and we're going to use the this plugin, this Visual Studio plugin for it. So let's first of all stop the web app, and we're going to go to not configurations. Let's go to add iOS project. So this is going to add iOS support to my project. Let's add iOS. All right, so iOS has been added, and then that if you go up here to run, iOS is set up. So now let's see if we can get this thing to run in iOS emulator. So let this guy run. And so it's looking for a device to run on, and we're going to run on my 14 Pro Max simulator. And I think that I can get some output somewhere here. Yep, here we go. So it's going to try and, well, not try, hopefully we're going to get a build out of this. So let this run for a while. I think the map isn't going to work because I didn't set, well, not the map, but the geolocation isn't going to work because I didn't set the permissions in my plist. But so while this is running, let me take a look and get my documentation straight on what it is so I can make the change and get it back in there. Okay, so here's this guy running in my emulator. I suspect it's failing because it's throwing an error because I did not set my permissions properly. So if we take a look at the documentation here, it says the app requires privacy descriptions to be identified in the info plist. So I need to set up my info plist, and we can go back here and go into your iOS project, then inside of app, and then inside of app again, is it? Here's our info plist. And portraits, is there permissions? No, there's not permissions. So let's go down here and add them. Okay, so here are the values that I need to add. Close this one, get some more room so you can see what I'm doing. So here's the location, always when in use description. Your location. For data. It doesn't really matter what you put here, you just need to make sure you have these keys included. So I'm just going to put the same thing for everything. All right, so now we have the keys there, and we have saved the file. So let's go back, and let's run this again. So you can see down here it's rebuilding it. So you can see now it's asking for the location. I can say allow while using app. Why did I miss a render? So I found this solution. I'm going to give it a try. And I'll link below also with the solution I found. Let's go into our terminal and to install this, let's move this over here. Install this worker loader. And then they don't really say where they added this code, but I'm going to add it in my index.tsx and see if that solves it. Let's move this import statement up. Let's add this and let's stop this and try to run it again. And just for reference, as this is building, this is the Stack Overflow issue where someone's kind of complaining about the similar issue, and so I'm going to give this a try. Oh, and it looks like that solution does work. So we have our map. You can see it's got a different location because I'm assuming, let's see, debugger, features, location. Yeah, I've had to set a custom location. Let's see if I change this to Apple. And then let's close this guy and restart it again. Open this up again. All right, yeah, now on the reload, it got the Apple location. So this is our Apple location, and then let's see. How do I need to turn zoom on? I got to do a little bit more research on, you see it's not even scrolling around here, on how you actually scroll this Mapbox map. So we got it running on your phone. This is kind of what they're saying the power of Ionic and Capacitor is the ability to build a web application, which we have right here, and take it and run it in Capacitor and then having it run on device. So, like I said, we got more to come in the video, so stick around. So we're here for the next part of the video, which is getting my Supabase project set up. So I'm here in Supabase, 1, 2. I'm going to create a new project. Put that down there. Let's copy that password just in case I forget it. It's on a free plan. So we're going to create this project. Did I hit create? And let's see. So it's setting up, it's getting my API keys and all the other magic stuff. While it's doing that, I as well copy my keys and stuff I'm going to need. So let's copy that. Okay. So now our project is set up. We're going to basically follow the directions here from this blog post or documentation on specific extensions on how to use this PostGIS. PostgresQL extension is an extension that allows you to interact with geodata within Postgres, which is what we're going to use to allow us to make our API calls. So here's kind of the steps that you need to go through. You need to enable the extension. Then you need to kind of create a table, create an index on your table, and then load data in. The other important thing to notice is that the way that these queries are done, the two specific ones that are added here in this blog post are be able to sort an order by distance, and these are being done through functions. These are database functions that you need to add to your database. So that's the order by distance, and then here's how you actually call it through a remote procedure call. You then call your API function, and then there's this other one down here, which is you can find all the restaurants within a bounding box or a view. A bounding box or a region. And you do it by passing the coordinates the lat long, the min lat long, which is kind of, I believe, top left, bottom right. And that kind of gives you the data you want. So I will include this link so you can follow along. But what I've already done is I've basically pulled out all these statements into a separate file. So I can go into my SQL editor and I can create a new query, and I'll just kind of paste everything in and then kind of walk through it just like I did. So if I copy here, paste, and then we can kind of walk through everything that's kind of being done. So you need to enable the extension, and here's how you do it in SQL. Then I'm creating my table. Basically what I'm doing is creating a table of superchargers for a Tesla that are in the DC area. And so that's what I have here. These are the ones, a couple that are in the DC area. So here you create the table, you create the index that the table needs. This data I pulled from Alter Fuel data information. And so what we're doing is creating a table that has a name and then a specific location, which is the points. And these are lat long, I believe. And then here's the two functions. This is the remote procedure call that you're going to make to find superchargers near a specific location. And then here's the call you're going to make to find them within a bounds. And so I should be able to just click run on this, and hopefully everything will just work. So let's give it a go. So it ran, no rows were returned, so that means everything was good. If I go to my table editor, you can see I have my superchargers table and my points were added. They kind of go into detail kind of what this weird text looks, what this weird text is, but basically this can be converted back to points. And then in my code, I'll show how I'm converting the point into a lat long for me to render. I did notice that when I was doing a little bit of research that there is a way to write a function that will return this data in not in points. But I didn't want to go there. I'm trying to stick specifically with what was provided here in the documentation for this first one, and then I'll build upon it later. So now it looks like I have everything in, and my database is set up. Let's go back to my database. So everything's in, my database is set up, and the next step is to create a client, a Supabase client in my Ionic application, and then try to query some of these. And we'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll add a few that are a little bit further outside of the DC area so we can show how it's just finding the ones within a specific range. So that's what we got for this part, and now let's get back to the code now that we have the database set up. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing we need to do, of course, is install the Supabase client. So let's go down here, install Super, let's shrink my head. Let's install the JavaScript Supabase client. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create a separate file to hold that. I've already written this code. It's pretty straightforward, so I'm just going to cut and paste it. You basically need, this is your create client call, your URL, and your API key. And this will return a Supabase client that I will use throughout the application. All right. The next, I'm going to put that inside of Pages. We don't really want that inside of Pages, so let's move that out and put it up here at the top level. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create helpers map. Because what you'll find is that there's a couple of functions that I need to write that do some conversion of the map information to render in the UI. And it doesn't make sense to kind of muddy up what's happening here inside my main component with those map specific functions. So that's what's going to go inside a map helper. And specifically the kind of queries that I need to make. And so let's just start with the first query. And so, like I said, one of the first things that we want to do is, as soon as we get a location, we want to query the database and find the 3 closest chargers. And if we go back to what we did earlier, you see we have this kind of nearby restaurant call, which in our database, we have saved this as nearby chargers. And this kind of shows you how you make that API call. And like I said, ours is called nearby chargers. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our location that we're getting from the Capacitor plugin, we're going to pass the lat long in, and then we're going to get a result set of chargers that we're going to try and render on the map. Well, let's go back. And like I said, we want to execute this once we get the user's location. And so I could, let's see. So inside of here, we have this async where we're loading and we get the user's location and then we set the user's coordinates. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another UseEffect down here. And what we'll do in here is we will base this off of user location. And so what happens is if we have user location query database to get chargers. All right, so whenever the user location changes, we'll get the 3 closest chargers. That's what we're going to do there. And I have this function here. All right. So first let's get our Supabase client. Let's import that. So we're going to import our Supabase client. And then, like I said, what we want to do is we want to leverage our function that we have, or function, sort procedure, whatever that we have inside of Supabase. It's nearby chargers. We're going to pass it our location coordinates in lat long, and then it's going to give us, we just want the 3 closest ones. What we're doing here is if I get an error, then display an error. Let's make sure I've imported my error. So let's go up here, const use ion alert. So use ion alert, and I think we just need alert. And so what we're doing down here is, let's kind of close this first use effects. We've already covered what's happening there. So what we're doing down here is if we have a location query, create a database to get the chargers. And so this is the Supabase call here. If there's an error, display an error. Otherwise, we have a function called setMarkerData that we're going to set the, actually we don't have a function, we have, that needs to be added up here. So we need a state variable that's going to keep track of the marker data, because that's what we're going to render on the map. So this is our marker data, so that's setMarkerData. And then we have this function prepare query results. So basically why we need that is if we take a look back in our database and we look at our data, we're going to get back something that looks like these points that we originally put in. Like it says here, we can query the table directly, but it'll return a location column in the format you see above. We will create database functions so that we can use the as text function to convert it back to human readable format. So we're gonna get data like this back. And what we need to do is convert this to lat long. And so one of the first what's going on here? Missing alert, so let's add alert. One of our first functions that we need to in our map helpers is called prepare query results. And so let's see some imports. So position, we need to import from Capacitor. This convert chords is what I'm talking about, to kind of convert the coordination, to convert the point, basically to convert this to a lat long. So that's another helper function that I have. So let's pull that out. We need to get lat long. So basically, this is a charger location, and my get lat long function actually converts it. This convert chords loops through all of the results that I got, converts this thing to lat long, and then attaches it back to the object. We also calculate the distance and convert it to miles so that I have the distance the charger actually is from your current location. So that's what's going on inside of convert chords. All right, so, and now my last thing is I need my get lat long. And this is just some string manipulation. I know there's a different way to do this. I think you can actually also do this on a database side, but I didn't want to get too deep in that. The solution works. You can take a look on how to kind of do it on the database side yourself. So now that's, see, it's basically just doing a regex expression to kind of pull the lat long off, set it in the response. And so that's what we're doing there. So let's go down to pair proof. And then the last thing is calculate the map bounds. So what we want is, after I do the result and find the 3 closest points, I want the map to zoom so that it fits just the 3 closest locations it finds and the current user location. So that's all right there in the view. So it'll zoom in or expand to make sure everything fits. So let's get this calc bounds function also. So what this is I'm leveraging a function that I get from Mapbox, where I just basically keep feeding it all the locations, and it will extend the bounds to make sure that all of the locations that I provide are inside the bounds. Then I convert the bounds to an array, and then that's what I use to tell my map to fit in the bounds that was provided, and then I put some padding around the side to make sure that everything is fitting with a little bit of space around the edges. So that's what's kind of going on here. So let's see, do I have everything? I think I have all my functions in. Let's go back to home. Let's import this. So I've imported it. I have my alert, I have user location. Let's see if I can get this thing to work the first time. All right, so it found something, and then it zoomed because you can tell the way the map moved, but I'm not doing anything with the marker data. But let's take a look in the debugger and see what I got. So I think I can use my components map. I believe this is home, so let's search for home. And I got some stuff here. Let's see what I got. All right, this is it. This is my state. These are the 3 locations that it found. I'm going to zoom this in a little bit. All right, so it found the location on M Street Northeast. You can see it took this point here and it converted it to this coordinates, this lat long. It also gave me the distance in miles, and these are the 3 coordinates that it got. And then basically the map kind of adjusted to fit them all. So the next step that I need to do is to actually take these coordinates and render them on the map. And the way, let's put this back. And the way you do that is with a Postgres marker, not Postgres, with this mapgl marker component. And I'm just going to modify my import statement to bring a couple more things in here. So let's go back up to the top. Excuse me, I notice my voice is getting a little raspy. So let's go up here. We're going to use MapBounds, I believe, and then we definitely need the marker, and we're going to use a pop-up so that when you click on the marker, we can show some information on that. So the markers are just like this marker. It has to be inside of the map. So we're going to come down here, and we're going to create a loop that'll loop and render the markers. We're going to hide this for now because we're not showing a pop-up. But when we show the pop-up, we're going to need that additional information. All right, so what this code says is if I have any marker data, loop through each one of the markers, which is a charger, and create a marker, use a charger ID, pass in a lat long, and then have some action on the click for you to see what happens. So in the marker data, you can see here, this set marker data call will actually set the marker data, which is a local state variable that I have. So let's give it a run. Actually, it already re-rendered some of them. You can see them, but let's just refresh the page. You can see the zoom. It's a little off. Let me switch this to your mobile app view, because that's how I rendered the padding and everything to fit with the mobile app perspective. And let's refresh this. And you can see, let's adjust this to fit to window. Fit to window. Bump this 125, I can go 150. Yep. So you can see, well, let's refresh this. How it zoomed in and I got my 3 locations. And they rendered on the map, and they all kind of fit in the visible view, which is what I was looking for. All right, so we've rendered our markers. Now let's get the pop-up, because I want to be able to click, when I click on this, show some additional information. So let's put back in that state variable that I commented out before. Let's go up to the top. Okay, so what will happen is as I click on a marker, I will save the information for that marker in here so that it can be used in the pop-up. So let's go down here and activate this again. So we'll set it, but then also now we need to add some code down here to actually show a marker when a marker is selected. And what's going to happen is there will only be one marker just every time, there will only be one pop-up, but every time you click on a marker, the current pop-up will change, the current selected pop-up will change, which it will, the current selected marker will change, which will cause the pop-up to get updated, move to the new location, and show the new information. So this is the markup. And so if I have a selected marker, use the name, use the coordinates, and render it. And then also provide the, I'm using a name as the key, and then also provide the name in the text. Okay, so let's refresh this. It rendered them, and then I can click, and you can see it's showing the name information of the marker that was selected. And then I can click on the other one, you can see it changes, then click on this last one. And so you can see I'm getting my marker information. All right, and so the last thing that I want to do is, as I move the map around, I want to be able to search based on the location that I have visible. And what we're going to do to make that work is we'll use this other function So I've already used this order by distance. This next one will be this one down here. Find all data points within a bounding box. Bounding box region. And so basically what we'll do is we'll get the visible bounding box. We'll pass that to the remote procedure call or stored procedure or whatever you want to call it, Supabase function. It will get the results, and then we'll do exactly what we did up above here. We will get the results. We will pass them into this prepare queries to kind of add the additional information that we need. And then we'll call set marker data. Once marker data gets set, you can see when marker data changes, it'll re-render a map. It'll use the new markers and it'll render those markers. All right. So we'll follow the exact same procedure as before. Let's add a button in here to click. Import my button. Get chargers in MapBounds. That's the function that I created here. So get chargers in MapBounds. It takes them in the max. It kind of breaks them out here. It passes them to supercharger in view. It gets all the data. If there's an error, it throws an error. Otherwise, we kind of call our set marker data. We clean up the results, and then we go. And then what we're doing here is we're using the ref that we have on the map. And then from that, we call get bounds, and it gives us the bounds for the map. So let's see what we got. So you can see it's already kind of, here's my little button. Right now, we only have these three icons here from the initial query, which just does based on your current location. But if I zoom my map in, like I want to know, are there any other chargers in this area? And I can click search this area. It finds all the rest of the chargers that are in the area and then adjusts the zoom of the map to fit them. See? So like these are new chargers that weren't initially on the map. I can, if I put the map like this, that is a bug because it shouldn't find anything. Oh, I know what it's doing. I told it to search that area and it couldn't find anything, but what's happening is I believe search chargers and MapBounds. Yeah, I'm still passing in the user's location. And so it's using that location as an area, and so it's basically saying this is the bounds of the map and the bounds is around my current location. So I could go in here and try to figure out if the location's null to not use it, but I don't want to muck around. I hadn't accounted for that. That's something you can figure out. But that's basically what's happening. What's happening is that this calculate map bounds uses the current user location, and that's the only point that exists in the bounds, and so the map is zooming in on that specific boundary. So that's what's going on there. But otherwise, you can add a button to refresh it. Like I said, the initial query just finds your location and searches in that area, renders the items on the map, zooms, shows it to you, and then the search in this area. So let's see, we know right up here in Bethesda there's only one. So if I go like this, right, I should only get these two results. So let's say search this area. It included the Chevy Chase one. Right, and let's just go all the way up like this. See, it didn't get anything below. We know there's one down here. But since that wasn't in the original region when I said to search, it only found these two. So that's what we see happening. Like if I set it like this, search this area, it only finds this one. And you can see it's not rendering, or it hasn't found any of the other items that we know do exist on the map. Because if I zoom all the way out like this and say search this area, you can see it's finding all these locations. So that's really all I wanted to cover. We can do one final build to kind of make sure that this thing is running on device. Let's go back down to my Ionic, and let's tell it to run on iOS. I think this is what I normally use. It might take a little while for this build. So it basically found the 3 closest chargers based on my location, which by default is set to San Francisco. Let me see if I can adjust that. Emulator. I think this is a custom Washington, D.C. location. Let's see. App switcher. Let's close this. See, did I get my new location? Yeah, there it goes. So now it's using my location of DC, and it's found the 3 closest ones. If I zoom my map in a bit and say search this area, it finds all the other locations. We have our pop-ups are appearing as we wanted. And that's that. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Please make sure you like, subscribe, share with your friends, and leave your comments and feedback below. Thanks. Bye now.